Hello, my name is Keith Jones. I'm recording this video from the grounds of the Blessed Sacrament Catholic Church in Burlington, North Carolina. Now, historians must be true to the facts of history through an honest reconstruction by primary sources. Broadcast media plays a major role in modern Christianity and has since the invention of radio in the early 20th century. Big tent revival circuit preachers and other large venue pastors have expanded their message to the airwaves. This gave rise to a modern phenomenon known as televangelism. Jerry Falwell called for a saturation of the airwaves so that the gospel could be heard at every available time by every available means. Of course, the earliest innovators were in radio. Early examples include Amy Semple McPherson, who was a Pentecostal leader, and she established the Foursquare Church and the Angelus Temple, one of America's first mega churches, and it still operates today. She led an interesting and sometimes scandalous life. This included an instance where she faked her own kidnapping. Another example of an innovator was Catholic priest Fulton J. Sheen. Father Sheen made the leap from radio to television, and he may well become the first televangelist to attain sainthood. More modern era of television from the 1950s on has featured such names as Billy Graham, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, Oral Roberts, Jimmy Swaggart, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, Joyce Meyer, and Joel Osteen. This is to name but a few. The basis for their ministries come from various directions, their approaches. Billy Graham is a modern equivalent of earlier traveling revivalists such as Billy Sunday and Wilbur Chapman. Joel Osteen is a current example of a pastor whose platform is a modern megachurch with tens of thousands of members. Pat Robertson and Jim Baker established their own television stations. I guess they cut out the middleman there. Televangelism runs the gamut from the highly godly to the highly questionable. The television platform has produced great victories for the kingdom of Christ and also disastrous scandals. Infidelity scandals damaged the witness of both Jimmy Swaggart and Jim Baker. Now, Baker's famous tryst with Jessica Hahn opened up Pandora's box that resulted in his imprisonment for fraud in connection with his Heritage USA Christian resort. Now, the appeal for donations is a strong component in televangelism. There are faith healers such as Oral Roberts and Leroy Jenkins. Jenkins claimed that his arm was severed and was lifeless and gangrenous after being reattached. However, he said that God miraculously healed it and restored it to full use. Now, Reverend James Browder, who was a skeptic of Jenkins, claimed to have had a letter from doctors in the emergency room that treated Jenkins, saying that his case was far more routine and less miraculous than he proclaimed. But that was the basis for his whole ministry, and from which he sold his miracle water, which came from wells on one of his properties. Now, the water, as it turns out, was contaminated, so I find that less than miraculous. But like Baker, Jenkins ended up in prison for a whole suite of crimes, including selling the water without a license, and for tax evasion, and even conspiracy to commit arson and assault. And Billy Graham, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, and others have used the medium of television to evangelize and expand the kingdom of God. Others have used it as a way to reach local shut-ins. A lot of local churches do this. However, there are plenty of hucksters and others who are seduced by greed and lose their godly path. Now, we must be careful and use discernment to separate the wheat from the chaff. Thank you for listening.